Okay, we're going to transfer over to finishing up law and licensing, and then after that, we'll have our superintendent's report. So, Chair Hymas. Oh, we got to put you in the key here.
Thank you. Thank you. We are on to agenda item 4.7, R277-474, Section 5, School Instruction and Sex Education. The committee moves that the board approve R277-475, Section 5, or 474, Section 5, School Instruction and Sex Education, Draft 1 on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion is that the board approve R277-474-5, School Instruction and Sex Education, Draft 1 on second and final reading. And it looks like Board Member August, do you have a question?
I do. I am confused with the difference between draft 1 and draft 2. So I guess my question is, was there no changes by the committee in draft 1 and therefore we have blue and red on draft 2? Or is draft 2, should we have other colors that maybe perhaps I am missing?
So if I could answer, Chair.
Yes,
Vice
that would
Chair,
be great.
what do you want to
Yes,
be called?
that would be
Jenny?
great. That works.
Yeah, draft 2 was put forth by Member Klein. We actually had a side conversation. I'll let her speak for herself, but draft 1 is what's on the table currently. Draft 2, ultimately, in my opinion, says the same thing as draft 1.
Okay.
So what's
so one-
before us right now
Okay,
is
but
draft 1.
there's no differences from draft 1 to draft 2 except what I see here in blue and red. Usually there's 4 colors. Is,
Right.
I guess my concern, and I wanted to make certain that I wasn't missing anything.
Board Member Bacchus, it sounds like that's the case. Is that accurate? Okay.
Right, and so, draft 1, that's what we're looking at now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and we'll go ahead and take a vote on that. All those in favor? Raise your hand. I can read it again. The motion is that the board approve R277-474-5, School Instruction and Sex Education, Draft 1 on second and final reading. All those in favor? Raise your hand. So, and we're missing 2. So that looked unanimous for those that are here. Is that accurate? Okay, so go ahead and next one. Oh, so sorry.
No worries, thank you. This is agenda item 4.8, R277-700, Section 7, the Elementary and Secondary School General Core. The committee moves that the board approve R277-700, Section 7, the Elementary and Secondary School General Core, Draft 3 on second and final reading.
Okay, Board Member Wood, I have you.
Yes, I have a substitute motion.
Okay,
I
that's
move
in
that
order.
the board approve R277-700-7, the Elementary and Secondary General Core Draft 4 on second and final reading.
Okay, do we have a second? Second. There's a second by Board Member Rill. Anybody, do we have any comments to that? Okay. Board Member Klein?
Yes, looking at draft 4, it appears that it says a student refrains, if a student refrains from a portion of a course or to a course in its entirety under section 53G 10-205, the parent and school shall work together to establish a reasonable academic accommodation which allows the student to demonstrate mastery of the core standards consistent with 53G 6, 803, and 53G 10-205 2B prior to the student's promotion to the next course or grade level. This appears to be putting requirements on a parent, which we don't have the authority to do. And in reading 53G 10-205, it appears that the law is putting restrictions on the state or the school, where it says the school may not, and it allows for the school to make to offer an alternative, but does not require it, because if the mastery of core standards, or if there's a particular core standard that is required that is the very thing that is in violating the student or the student's parents' religious belief or right of conscience, the school would, The only way to make this work is for the school to be able to infringe upon or violate the student or student's parents' religious belief or right of conscience, which the code explicitly prohibits. It says that the school may not penalize or discriminate against a student or a student's parent because they refrain from participating due to a religious belief or right of conscience violation. So while I see that this is an attempt to find middle ground, the code is not written that way. It is written to make sure that the parent and the student's right is protected and that the state does not infringe on it based on the Utah Constitution, Article 1, Section 4, that says the rights of conscience shall never be infringed. So I think I would like to make a substitute, or I would like to amend the substitute motion for us to go with staff's recommendation, which is draft 1. So I move that the board approves R277-700, Section 7, draft 1 on second and final reading.
Is there a second to that? I would second that. Okay, there's a second to that. Do you want to, you kind of already did speak to it. Do you have additional information you'd like to provide? Okay. Sorry. You're right.
Oh, and I have my glasses.
Board Member Klein. And then we can come back to you if you'd like.
So I'm just looking at.
Hold on just a second. We've got, oh, we can't substitute a substitute. Okay, thank you.
No, I'm just amending the substitute, which is
I don't think
changing
you-
the 4 to a 1. You can amend a substitute.
Check and see. So, now, I don't know if you all are aware of this, but we have with us today our attorney that is not new, or anyways, she's new to us. We've had her before, but Michelle Buse. So she is back there looking at provisions here real quick. But I do point, I'm just going to take a personal privilege if I can real quick. I did bring, with the new attorney, I did bring we just hadn't done the official welcome, so you've got yourself a flag. And I brought the referee shirt for you too. So those are at your discretion. You can get them later. So, yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll throw the flag here if we need it. So if we want to check on that. So I don't know if do you want to, I guess we wait for just a second?
May I comment?
Yeah, go ahead and comment, and then if it's out of order, we'll know. So go ahead.
Well, I just want to make it clear that as a board, we don't have the authority to vote unconstitutionally. And the amendment, or the motion of draft 4 violates or potentially violates a parent or a student's religious belief or right of conscience. When the two are at an impasse, it's the system that usually wins out. But the system is acting unconstitutionally if it requires the parent or the student to fulfill a requirement that fundamentally violates their religious belief or right of conscience. And I know that prior, or when the Law and Licensing Committee met on this, they received communications from attorneys expressing those rights. I'm happy to revisit that letter that was written in by.
If you want to submit it, I think people can have that. I don't know.
It's- I
Is
think-
it long or is it? It is long. If you want it, does everybody have access to it?
It's not too long. I'm happy to read it into the record.
So,
I can skip the first little bit where he introduces himself.
If you just read the part that's being changed, then that's an amendment, but to replace the whole draft is a substitute.
okay, so this is out of order then. So,
Replacing the whole draft is a substitute.
okay. So, yep, so we're back to the original substitute. And is there anyone that would like to speak to that? I think Board Member Norton, you were on cue? Oh, I just deleted all.
I didn't get to speak to it.
Okay. Okay, so
Yes.
my question is.
Did you get to speak to it? Oh,
I did not.
I apologize. I'm out of order here. We should have allowed the maker of the motion to speak, and that did not happen. And then we'll come right back to you. Thank you. So, Board Member Wood.
No, you're fine. Thank you, Chair, or Vice Chair. The work on this was that there was some concern when the draft came out of committee, that there still wasn't some balance there. And we have these, our parents are working within a system, and all of the other places in this, where this code was placed, talk about the LEA shall do this, the LEA shall do this, the LEA shall do this. And so ultimately, the LEA has that final requirement to make sure that their students are eligible to graduate. And they set up those based on our standards. And so this was looking at how can we create this partnership? And if we know from studies that when schools and parents work together, that is what creates the ultimate benefit for our students within the system. And so this was a way to look at what was already in code, which this 53G-6803 is our parental rights code. And so it looks at what language our LEAs are already familiar with when it comes to having to work with people. This is not new in terms of parents being able to waive their right for their student to participate in anything. What is new is that the student now has that right also, which I think is important. We're recognizing that our students need that ability to step out when there's something that's not that's uncomfortable to them or doesn't feel right to them. But this allows this partnership to work together that says, okay, we're still going to graduate students that have the skills necessary to say that, yes, they graduated from the Utah Public Education System, but under that parental rights code that's already there, already established, without, and also tying in that 53G-10-205 where it says they may alter an alternative. But if they offer an alternative, where in the end is there some work together? And I think that's what this does, is tries to say, use that parental rights code, use the code from 53G-10, and work together so that we know that our students are learning what they need to, but they also always have that right to refrain when they need to.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Norton? Do you have that?
This is a question for the maker, if that's okay. As you were looking at this and developing this, do you see any room in this, interpretation of this section right here where that the reasonable accommodation would be that particular, maybe not the entire standard, but a portion of the standard or the offensive area of that standard could be waived?
I think that's what 53G-10-205 does ultimately, is it says that they may refrain from everything. But if they refrain from that particular standard, then how do we move ahead from the system look of it as to, okay, if they can't qualify that they are ready to graduate because they missed this, I don't think that's the intent of this law, is to say, well, I'm sorry, you stepped out, now you can't graduate, you don't have that standard met. So how do parents and the school work together to say, we understand you don't want this, what can we do to make sure that we know your student is ready?
And so, but again, you're talking about a whole standard. So for instance, you might be saying that they are, and that's not what my
sorry.
question was about. That's okay. But that does open the broader issue. I was thinking, for instance, are you talking about that they would waive the entire high school junior social studies standard? I was thinking they might waive the portion on civil rights, but you're talking about that if necessary, they would waive they would find an alternative for the you know, the 11th grade social studies standard, that we
Chair-
might take the whole block.
And I think
Chair
that's where that
Norton.
partnership is.
Board Member Wood?
Sorry.
Yes, sorry.
I
Sorry,
had to go back and
forth.
I'm just going to, I'm going to have
Yeah,
you
sorry.
direct it this way, so we're not doing the you and the, just so it's going, I understand, Chair, that it's just, thanks.
Yeah, so I think that's why it has to be a partnership. I think that's why this section is so critical, is let's make sure our students know
We'll
what
get
they
there.
need to, but they're comfortable.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I have Board Member Lear, you're up next.
And I very much support this change. One of my favorite quotes that you've probably heard before is, and is often misquoted, is foolish consistency.
Click it again.
Foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. And I think usually while it's usually preferable to just go as Member Klein's substitute would propose to what the law says and leave it at that, I think this is an especially important issue where we ought to be encouraging both schools and parents to work together to have something that's mutually acceptable. And because it has to do with satisfying core requirements and it has to do with satisfying parental rights. So I very much support this, again, not the most simplistic, but a very reasonable intersection with the parental rights code. I think it's a really great fix for this.
Okay. Board Member Bogus, you didn't speak on this already, right? Okay, you're next. Go
Can I
ahead.
send it to you? To you? Okay. Chair, I have an amendment. I'd like to amend the motion here. I'm going to send this to Superintendent Stallings. I would like to amend the motion to read, to strike lines 11 through 17 and amend it to read number 4, agents of LEAs and their supervisors shall engage consistent with 53G-6-803 and 53G -10-205 2B. I did not do that 100% correct, Superintendent Stallings. And then with a second, I'd like to speak to the motion.
Is there a second? Okay, Board Member Green, is that you that seconded? Okay, there's a second. Okay, let's take a look what we have. So, strike lines.
Lines 11 through 16.
So you want us striking all of section 4
Yes,
and replacing it with,
replacing it with the language that I sent. Agents of LEAs and their supervisors shall engage consistent with. And those two
so I
code
don't
words.
know if, can I get some help on this? I don't know if this is actually an amendment. I think this is a substitute motion because it's the only changes and you're striking all the changes to the document. But what I'm saying is it's striking everything, so it would have, that's, everything that's in draft 4 that's a change is being stricken. Am I right that can that be done as an amendment?
Yeah.
Is that accurate? I'm looking for confirmation. Well, it's all of it. Everything that's altered is being stricken. It feels like it's a substitute. Am I wrong in
So
saying?
it's not feeling, it's not a substitute. If you look, go to line 14, it says consistent with. That language remains.
Okay, so you're leaving a portion of it, so you're deleting
Yes.
most, okay, my apologies. I thought it was taking all of it out and adding new language in.
I just worded it in a way that would be less complex.
Okay, so. Okay, so let me go ahead and read it. Tell me if this sounds right, if I'm reading this correctly. It would be strike, that the board strikes lines 1 through 16 and replaces it with age,
For clarity, it's 11.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's
11 through
okay. I just
16.
wanted to make certain we had clarity.
Thank you. 11 through 16, and replace with agents of LEAs and LEA supervisors shall engage consistent with section 53G6 803 and subsection 53G10 205 2B. Do we,
So
I just have just a point of order real quick here.
Yeah.
Do we use the term agents of LEAs? So we don't really know. Would we just put LEAs? Because agents of LEAs, we don't use that terminology. Is that accurate? Okay, go ahead, Angie.
So the code does use that terminology, but
Angie hit it again.
it does say agents, I'm pretty certain. And if I'm wrong, I'll own it. But I really don't want an LEA's supervisor. I would like it to be there because I want it to modify the agent. So whoever the agent is, whether it's a paraeducator or an instructional coach or a counselor, regardless of who that is, and then their supervisors shall engage consistent with those two code lines. And then I would still like to speak to the motion if possible.
Okay, let's just I just want to clarifying on this. Okay, there you go.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Board Member Bragas, I am not seeing the word agent anywhere in 53G10-205. It may be somewhere else in another section of code. So what we've been drafting up there, sorry, I'm getting back, is maybe to say an LEA, including an LEA's employee. I don't even know if we need to say supervisor. But we could say an LEA's employee or agent shall, yeah. It does, you could just say an LEA shall. So it could just be an LEA shall engage consistent with. One thing I will just mention is the existing language in subsection 4 does speak to when a student refrains or a parent requests a waiver. And I didn't know if you wanted to start with that to just give the context, because the rest of the rule doesn't necessarily nod to what is causing them to look at 53G6803 and 53G10205. So I didn't know if you wanted to, when a student refrains or a parent waives the student or anyway.
Oh, yes. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So my point or my purpose in leaving that out is that it seems in draft 4 that we've taken the parental aspect of this out and implied that this has to come from the student, and it just seems to me to be very verbose. So I tried to really encompass all of 205 in that idea that we just engage consistent with the code. And I would still like to speak to the motion. I'm not opposed to more clarifying language. I just would like to keep it very high level and umbrella so that we're not narrowing the scope. Because may I speak to the motion?
Well, I think you are. Do you want to finish speaking to the motion?
Yes, I would love to speak to the motion. I think if we pass this draft 4 as written, we're going to end up in admin rules. The
Okay.
legislature was very, very clear with this code. It passed by a supermajority. And I don't think that's where we want to be. And I think we need to just have clarity that we've got code lines and we expect our LEAs and all those who they contract with and employ to follow them. So that would be my speaking to the motion. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else speaking to this motion? Board Member Carey, do I have you speaking to this? Okay, so the motion is that the board strike lines 1 through 16 of draft 4 and replace with an LEA shall engage consistent with section 53G6 803 and subsection 53G10 205 2B. All those in favor, raise your hand. Oh, okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, I have 3. I have Board Member Klein, Board Member Bogus, and Board Member Green. And all those opposed, raise your hand. Okay, so the numbers are 11 to 3, 11 opposed, 3 in favor. Are you speaking now? Okay, get in the queue. Okay, Board Member Carey. Okay, the outcome of that was 11 against and 3 for, and so it failed. Go ahead.
the maker of the motion's permission, I would like to make a friendly amendment and then speak to the amendment.
Go ahead.
So on line 13, we have, and the school shall work together. The parent and the school shall work. I would like to change shall to may.
Okay.
And if I-
Is there any opposition to that? No opposition, so we'll go ahead and make that change right now.
And can I speak to it?
No, we just made it.
Oh.
I'm kidding, go ahead. You can speak to
We
it.
didn't want to hear you speak to
Why
it.
don't you
That's why
speak
we-
to the whole thing in general? Go ahead.
Okay. I just want to say, again, this came up in law and licensing, and it was a healthy debate. It didn't, the debate didn't stay along party lines and the lines we typically see sometimes develop. There was a lot of passion and healthy argument, not in the sense that it was heated, but in the sense that we were really trying to help each other understand what it was that was happening here. I am a big believer and proponent of 205, but after we had that law and licensing meeting, I reached out to, as I'm sure we all did, members in the legislature to try to get more insight and understanding on this. And in that process, I reread several times 53 G10 205. And it says that, once a student refrains from participating, the school may offer an alternative. It's not required to. It doesn't have to. If the parent keeps making unreasonable demands, I think the language is clear that the school can say, we're done. We've tried to accommodate this. We can't. And I believe that the language, and I commend Leanne and several others. When I was reached out to about the changed language, I told the board member that reached out to me, good luck, because I saw what happened in law and licensing. I didn't think you could bring those sides together. But kudos to board member Wood. She continued to work on this and continued to solicit advice and differing opinions. And again, I do believe that the language in the amended motion does comply with the law and as it's written. And so I would support the amended motion.
Okay, and we have a comment from Member Bogus. Go ahead. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So, Vice Chair, I am wondering how we are consistent with 205 if we are preventing promotion based on refraining, because that's how I read this. That there has to be an alternative for mastery, but if the standard itself is what is objected to, an alternative is not going to do the thing. Like, it's not going to get it done. So I'm wondering how this language is consistent with 205.
And I'm going to try to answer that, and you can tell me if in my view, 53G6803, where it talks about alternative methods for getting credit, would be a methodology in which that could take place. There's a variety of ways there. So I think, did that answer your question?
No.
Okay.
Because the content or the core standard itself, if that is what is being objected to, it doesn't matter how you do it. They don't want their child subjected to that content or standard. So there's a real logical conclusion that says we will end up needing to promote kids who did not master core standards. And so as this is written, either we kick them forward and they don't master it, or we're coming in conflict with 205.
Okay. Board Member Carey, did you have a comment to that?
If I could, Vice Chair, I thought originally the same thing. My analysis brought me to that same endpoint. But if we look at the denial of offering an alternative as a punishment, then we have to look at the effort to accommodate the request as an incentive. And the law makes clear we can offer neither an incentive nor a punishment. So if we look at this and say, hey, the mere fact that someone is not participating the natural consequences of that decision not to participate, they are not being punished per se because of by an extra action. This is a natural result of the decision that that student or that parent made. And just like we wouldn't look at it and say, well, look, the school just offered 3 different alternatives, they're incentivizing this behavior, we wouldn't look at it that way. And so the natural consequence of a parent saying, I don't want to participate, therefore you're not going to get the credit, could not be looked at in that same vein. Thank you.
And just maybe to add to that, I'm just looking at the code I just referenced, but there are options, meaning the test out of a course or demonstrating competency. And I understand you're saying it may be the standard itself, right? It will just, I think as those come up, I mean, I think that those are going to have to be dealt with, but to say that, oh, you just automatically move kids on, I think there has to be some accountability. So that's the language here, which I strongly encourage us to go with, is it should be work together. It should be, let's work together to find what needs to happen. And so I think for the most part, as I've reached out to my districts, several of them over the last couple of weeks, that is their commitment, and that's what they have been doing, and will continue to do. So I think there may be times when we have some issues that come up with this, but I think by and large, most districts are going to work with their parents. They see this as a way to work with them, and there's a clarity of the language here under the, I think we put a fine point on it with the law this year, saying these are areas to be particularly concerned with, but I think we're going to see people working together, and I think that's the ideal situation. Board Member Klein, I have your, hold on.
I had a comment too. But
Can you, for some reason, it only lets me mute all, or what did I miss?
I don't have mine on yet.
What am I missing? I don't have,
Lean over into.
oh, got it. There's a
Okay.
second screen.
So I think that this gets to we're getting to the heart of a lot of the issues that parents are facing right now as far as being in a system that is compulsory, but a system that also has requirements of them that may not be accommodating their constitutional rights. And so is it okay for a system to, does the system's requirements trump a student or a parent's inalienable rights? And I would argue no, that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and that we cannot create a system that fundamentally denies a parent, a citizen, anybody, their fundamental rights. And when we took our oath of office, that is what we took an oath to do, is to defend those rights of individuals, those constitutional inalienable rights. Most fundamentally, those rights of conscience and religious belief. And so when we are in a secular system that does not honor those beliefs, but creates requirements that fundamentally goes against them, we find ourselves in a really precarious situation. And it's our job as elected officials who have taken an oath of office to uphold and defend and protect those rights to fix the system. The system is what needs fixing, not the parent, not the child. The system needs to be fixed to accommodate and protect those inalienable rights. And that is where we are at. And so when you pit a parent or a child against a system that has requirements, the system is going to win every time. And that's oppression, that's tyrannical, that is un-American. And so we have a problem, and it's our job to fix it. It's not the parent's job to fix it.
Okay, thank
They're
you.
the lighthouse, and we need to move and accommodate, and not the other way around.
Okay, Board Member Hart, do you have a comment?
Yeah, a diploma has to mean something, and that's why we set standards, and that's why we have a standards committee, and that's why we spend so much time on standards. When you all of a sudden say, for whatever reason, that a standard is not important or can be just waived, you really are wading in some territory that has a lot of unintended consequences. The law and the various related laws, such as the one that Vice Chair Earl was quoting from, has a lot of alternatives included in it. We cannot insulate people from natural consequences of their decisions. And when you make a decision, you personally are making a decision about what consequences you accept. And that's just a basic, that's not a punishment, that's not an incentive. There are a set of standards. If we're going to go down that road, then there's no point in writing standards, because at any point, they're not required for graduation. The diploma means less. So at some point, there has to be an understanding. There are mechanisms to different paths to the same destination. There are independent studies. There are things you can do at the school level. There's different schools. There's private schools with a voucher. There are various remedies. In fact, I would argue more than the average state. Our little old state offers quite a number of them. You can't expect an LEA to simply say, okay, that's just waived, and that's just, you don't like any of the alternatives, okay. If you're going to take that to its logical conclusion, I don't know that everybody is aware of how many high school students are missing credits and how much work is done in that last semester of high school to get work done. And if this is one of the avenues to free that responsibility of that work, you're creating a huge unintended consequence. I think the remedies are there for people that truly have an objection to the work. I just don't think it's our responsibility to shield them from natural consequences of those decisions. It doesn't make a diploma unreachable. It means that they need to choose a different path.
Okay, I'm going to have you
Yeah.
get back on.
Sorry.
You're good.
I have a real.
I'm just like, I know everybody's got their emotion thing, so we need to stay on the actual.
I oppose.
The actual, okay.
Any changes to that.
So, all right.
You're right.
Board Member Davis, you haven't spoken yet. Do you want to go ahead and?
Yeah, I'll just briefly say I'm probably no's to most of this. I mean, I'll vote for the amendment, but because I think what should have happened initially is that right of conscience should have been put into our parent rights code that we already have, and that would have saved everyone months of this. So anyway, I'll speak. I think the amendment does make it better, and I do appreciate Member Wood for making an attempt to try to create some sense into all the parental rights codes that we have. So thank you for doing that. And if it's hard for me to see the lights, but if there are no other lights, I call the question. Even if there aren't any other lights, I call the question. If there are.
There are two other lights. They've spoken before.
And I call the question.
Okay. Okay. So the question's been called. Is that seconded? Okay. So. No, on the actual. It was amended without. We already amended without objection. I already asked if there was anybody that objected to adding may instead of shall, so it would be the full. It would be the full
Well, my
amendment.
bad. I thought we hadn't voted on the amendment yet.
So are you calling a question on that, or would you like to continue? Okay, is that still seconded? Whoever seconded before? Okay, so we're going to vote on calling the question. Yes, it is May. Yep. Okay, so those in favor of calling the question, raise your hand. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in favor. Those opposed? Board Member Green, Board Member Klein, Board Member Bogus. So that's 11 to 3, right? So that the question's been called, and the motion is, do you want to scroll up? That the board approve R277707 draft 4 as amended. Is that accurate? On second and final reading. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in favor. 9, or what are you? Board Member Straight, are you up or down? Did you count that? Okay. Okay, those that are opposed, raise your hand. Those that are opposed. Okay, so we have Board Member Klein, Board Member Davis, Board Member Green, and Board Member Bogus are opposed. So the vote is 10-4, so it is approved. Sarah's right there. She's right there. So, yeah. Okay, she wants it in a different part of code. Okay, I turned myself off. Okay, we're moving to the next one, 4.8. Chair Hymas, do you want to? Oh, I'm so sorry.
I believe we're on
4.9.
4.9.
Yes.
R277-415, School Nurses Matching Fund.
Okay, looks
Hold
like.
on a second, let me
Ooh,
give you a
okay.
motion.
Yeah, give me the motion.
The committee moves that the board approve R277-415, School Nurses Matching Fund, Draft 1 on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion is that the board approve R277415, School Nurses Matching Fund, Draft 1 on second and final reading. We have a comment by Board Member Bogus.
Yes, I would move to amend.
Okay, that's in order.
I would
And
move to unstrike 98 and 99.
Line 98 and line 99? Or
Yes.
is it a number? Okay, so let's get that up. Is there a second? Well, I guess let's see what it is, right? Okay. Okay, I would like, give me,
To unstrike.
oh, unstrike. Okay, let me actually see what that is. We can read that out. What number are we on again? Sorry. 4.9. Okay, so 98 and 99. So we're unstriking, nothing in this rule gives any medical provider authorization to prescribe medications to a student without the written consent of the student's parent or guardian.
Yes.
I did. Board Member Green seconded it. So, okay, do we have a staff member that could speak to why that was maybe stricken in the first place? Looks like Director Rasmussen is going to come up and address that. Chair, or Board Member Bogus, do you have a specific question you'd like me to ask him?
Perhaps. I just don't know why anyone would prescribe anything to a minor without the express written parental consent.
Okay.
So I'm wondering why we're removing that as an expectation of our.
Okay, so Director Rasmussen, can you
Yeah.
address that?
Thank you. So just as a reminder as to the background for why the rule changes are being made here, the funding for the school nurses, this rule previously governed, has been taken away. And so all the rule language in there was in place basically to govern the school nursing program and what was required in correlation with that. Because that funding's gone, we've basically stricken everything from the rule, but are hoping to have the board just change it to cover the reporting requirements that are needed for those 2 reports, which we still work with the Department of Health to maintain. So the language to unstrike that would be unrelated to anything that's left in the rule. It would be kind of a, the board can decide if they feel that it should remain there, but it wouldn't be related to anything that's left in the rule.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand where it falls in the rule. So it would actually fall under 1, 2, it would be 3 then? Under what section? Just so there's a reference here for everyone.
There will only be one.
So LEA report submission. So this falls under LEA report submission. We would have a line that says, nothing in this rule gives any medical provider authorization to prescribe medications to a student without the written consent of a student's parent or guardian under this is what you have to report. Okay.
So for clarity, may I?
Yes, please.
So then where is the prohibition in our rules? Where have we mobilized it to?
I think it's in the law then.
Go ahead. Do you want to direct it this way and then I'll direct it that way?
Oh.
Yep, you looked at me. Okay, go ahead.
I don't think there was ever any prohibition. I think this was kind of, I'm not sure how this ended up in the rule before, but there wouldn't, I mean, I don't think there's any place we can specifically direct you to on that.
I don't know.
Kendra, is there any place?
I don't know why it does. It's doing some weird things. So,
We may-
do we have someone, do we have another?
Kendra, can you come up?
Yes, Chair Hymas, go
Thank
ahead.
you. I just want to clarify here, and this might help, maybe it won't, but if you recognize that section 1 is the only thing that was kept, and then lines 17 through 19, the purpose of the rule is to specify data collection requirements in connection with funds received for school nursing. It has nothing to do with distributing medication. So I think we're having a conversation that is not relevant here.
To
And
the
I'd love
rule
to spend 30 minutes on this,
Okay.
but I don't think it's relevant.
Board Member Bogus, does that alter your?
So with that in mind, I would withdraw the motion. I just would wonder where this is explicitly at, because I don't know why it was in here. You don't know why it was in here, right? But clearly it was put in here for a reason.
Okay.
And so anyhow, it just is what it is. But if it has no bearing on the thing, I read this all many times. It is what it is.
All right. I apologize. I do not know staff's name, but if you would please identify yourself and it's us. Okay, there we go.
Kendra Muir, School Nurse Wellness Specialist at USBE. So that same line is it is in the medication for administration for students. It's in a different law. So this law is specific to the data requirements.
Okay, and if you wouldn't mind, would you send that just on to Board Member Bogus? If I suppose maybe others might want that too, so you could just send it to Ben. Ben can send it out. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the motion before us is that the board approve R277415, School Nurses Matching Fund, Draft 1 on second and final reading. All those in favor, say aye, or raise your hand. Raise your hand. It looks like it's unanimous for those that are here, so we're missing 2. And then Chair Hymas?
Thank you. Vice Chair Earl, we are on agenda item 4.10, R277-437, open enrollment. This is a continuation. The committee moves that the board continue R277-437, open enrollment, on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board continue R277-437, open enrollment, on second and final reading. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that was unanimous. Go ahead on 4.11. So demanding, but we got you.
Agenda item 4.11, Board Policy 5003, Student Data Policy Advisory Group. The committee moves that the board approve the amendments to Board Policy 5003, Student Data Policy Advisory Group.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve the amendments to Board Policy 5003, Student Data Policy Advisory Group. And we have a comment. Board Member Klein, do you have a question? Oh, my apologies. Member Bogus. Okay. Member Bogus?
Thank you. I have a question and a possible amendment. It just seems like it's outside the scope of authority to have the Director of Privacy excuse a board member. And I don't know, it just
Are
seems
you
weird.
looking
So
at
I'm
a-
wondering what the purpose of that was.
Is there a specific line you're looking at so we can all?
Yes, 72 and 73.
Okay.
I'll read it out loud. It says, if a voting member misses 2 or more consecutive meetings without being excused by the Director of Privacy, the committee may request that the board remove the member and appoint a replacement. My concern is not with the board removing. My concern is the excusal process. It's not defined in here that I read. It causes me some consternation. I'm wondering what the purpose was and maybe if we've had
Do you have an
issues.
amendment or a suggested amendment, or do you want to find out more information?
I would like
prior- Okay.
to understand that better.
Is there someone that can give us some clarity?
And I have a possible amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. My understanding is that with this language was kind of copied from another board policy on one of the other committees, I think perhaps APAC. Not 100% sure off the top of my head, but I think that was the impetus for this, was they were just trying to address the issue by making it similar to a different policy.
May I
Okay,
amend?
and then Chair
Oh, sorry.
Hymas, are you on?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I'm hoping to address Member Bogus's concern as well. I think this is to minimize empty meetings, right? So you have somebody who doesn't show up, who did not reach out to the director, just is a no-show for 2 or more meetings. The director has that authority to say, hey, board members, maybe we consider somebody else.
So that was going to be my amendment. May I move that amendment?
But, well, I think it's already in there. That's how I read it.
So
It says, if a voting member misses 2 or more consecutive meetings without being excused by the Director of Privacy, so if they haven't reached out to the Director of Privacy, the committee may request that the board remove, the committee may request that the board remove the member and appoint a replacement. And remember, board members are not voting members. It has voting and non-voting members are listed.
Yeah, and I understand
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Can I move an amendment?
Yeah, I was just going to try to keep it back this way, but yes, go ahead.
I would move
You're
to
right.
amend line 72
Okay. What would
without
you-
providing notice to the Director of Privacy.
At the end of it?
No.
Oh.
We would strike the words being excused by and without providing notice to. I think to me, and may I speak to the motion once it has a second?
Yeah. We need a second. Okay, there's a second on there. Go ahead.
So, to me, there's a difference between the director not liking the reason someone is absent and just not showing up.
And do you want excuse stricken?
Yes, please.
Okay. Let's see if that works.
And I don't have any issues with the committee and all that stuff. I just think
Without being stricken.
we're adults, and if we're no showing, then we need to be replaced. But I think we're also adults, and I'm wondering if the reason is just not good enough. I mean, are we going to clarify the reasons that are excusable? It's just
Okay.
a thought.
Perfect. So we're striking without being excused, I think. Or excused by, okay. So it just has, Board Member Bogus, let me make sure I'm correct on this. You're going to be striking being excused by. And then we're replacing with without providing notice to. Whoever seconded that, are you still good with that? Okay. Okay, we have a comment from Board Member Klein.
Not on this part.
Okay, not on this. Board Member Lear?
I have to say, I've been on this committee like I felt like my whole life, and at least since I was on the board. And I will vote for this, but for this amended, a proposed amendment. But the directors, and I've seen 3 or 4 of them turn over, and they have never questioned a board member or said your excuse is not good enough. I think it's kind of insulting. So I'm okay about the changed language, but that is not something staff has ever done, and I'm a little bothered that the words are being, the suggestion that a staff member would be demanding or rude.
Okay, we are going to vote on this. The motion, or the amendment is that we're adding in, we're striking being excused by on line 72 and replace with providing notice to. All those in favor, raise your hand. Are we committed all now? Okay, all those opposed? Okay, we have two in opposition. That would be Board Member Norton and Board Member Straight. So it's, what are we at? 12-2? Okay, it passes. So we're back to the original motion. And Board Member Klein, do you have a comment?
Yes, I just have a couple questions. I'm also on this committee, and we haven't met. It feels like it's been a year. It was supposed to be meeting every month or quarterly, and the reason has been given that there isn't anything to do. But my last meeting before David Chalet left, I gave a whole list of concerns of areas that I felt like we as a committee needed to address. Because tech is taking over our schools, the data privacy is becoming, it hasn't been updated since like 2018, before COVID, before everything went online. We've got apps galore that teachers and schools are using, and there is very little control over what is happening in that realm. And yet this is being done, this restructuring of this committee is being done under the guise of there's just not that much to do. We will just call meetings as needed. And yet, at the same time, it's being restructured to be a voting and non-voting body. Where before, I don't think it was. I don't think it was a voting body. We were discussing things, but I don't remember ever taking votes on anything. And so it sounds like they're upping the importance of the committee while also trying to diminish its importance by having some voting and some not voting, and bringing more people onto it, but meeting less. It doesn't make sense.
So do you have something that you would like, or are you just speaking in opposition?
I'm speaking in opposition to it because it doesn't make sense in my mind, and I feel like there's more issues than ever to be addressed in this area, and I don't believe we should be meeting less. We should be meeting more, and I don't know why board members would be non-voting as opposed to bringing in more stakeholders that then do get the vote. None of it makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the motion before us is that the board approve the amendments to Board Policy 5003. I don't need to see how it was amended, though, like we just, okay. Student Data Policy Advisory Group. All those in favor, raise your hand. Would you like me to repeat it? We are voting on the student, the motion is that the board approve the amendments to Board Policy 5003, Student Data Privacy Advisory Group. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed? Okay, that would be Board Member Klein and Board Member Straight. So we've got 12 in favor, so that passes. 2 opposed. So number 12? Yes, okay, yeah, okay, right.
Thank you. We are on agenda item 4.12, R277-626, Special Needs Opportunity Scholarship Program. The committee moves that the board approve R277-626, Special Needs Opportunity Scholarship Program, Draft 1 on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-626 Special Needs Opportunity Scholarship Program, Draft 1 on second and final reading. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed? Board Member Bogus is opposed. Okay. So next one, 413.
Thank you. Agenda item 4.13, R277-718, out-of-school time program quality improvement grants. This is a continuation. The committee moves that the board continue R277-718, out-of-school time program quality improvement grants on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board continue R277-718, out-of-school time program quality improvement grants on second and final reading. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed? Okay, there are 2 in opposition, Board Member Klein and Board Member Bogus, so that's 12-14. Go ahead, on number 14.
Agenda item 4.14, R277-552, charter school timelines and approval processes. The committee moves that the board approve R277-552, charter school timelines and approval processes, draft 1 on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-552, charter school timelines and approval process, draft 1 on second and final reading. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed? Looks like that was unanimous. And then the last item, 4.15.
Agenda item 4.15, Board Policy 1004, Advisory Groups. The committee moves that the board approve Board Policy 1004, Advisory Groups, Draft 2.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve Board Policy 1004, Advisory Groups, Draft 2. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? And that is 2 in opposition, Board Member Straight and Board Member Davis. And we are done. Little dance.